Chapter 5 Stars and Sand. A few days later, the twins spent most of the day at the family's fabric shop with Father, while Mother rested with the new baby. Before leaving for the shop that morning, though, they needed to harvest some of the vegetables from their garden. The morning sun was slowly shining through the cool fog that draped itself all around the townhomes. The girls each pulled the piled carrots, onions, and turnips, brushing off the dirt from each. They snapped plenty of pea pods into one middle pile, snacking on cool, sweet peas as they worked. Though they had attempted to grow several grapevines with the help of Uncle Philippe, they hadn't turned out very well this season. Maybe next year. Though the sun had only been up a short while, Guillaume came outside with the girls and played quietly with sticks and dirt near the edge of the back plot. When the sisters had taken up all the ripe vegetables, leaving others for later weeks, they gathered them in their aprons and headed for the cooking area. Later they would help Mother and Mary clean, store, and cook their harvest. They were pleased with the work of their hands. "I didn't see Bouclé this morning," said Albert. "Maybe he is in front," said Renee, not worried. They looked in the front and back but couldn't find him. Apparently he had chewed through the rope that held him. Now they were worried. They stayed close to their house and tried to find him in other yards, but he was nowhere to be found. Mother gave them permission to look up the street and around the corner. They asked neighbors, but no one had seen him. In the end, they came back in the house weeping because they couldn't find Bouclé and thought they would never see their soft little friend again. Did he run away? Did someone take him? No one knew. Abraham and Father took up the search again, up and down the plots, but they couldn't find him either. Everyone tried to comfort the sad twins, except for Guillaume. He was still playing with his dirt and sticks, quite unaware of the entire fuss. No one had thought to ask Guillaume. Finally, he came in the house, brushing off the mud caked on his robe. "Out, out, do that outside, Guillaume," said Mother, as she pushed him by his shoulders. As he was being moved out, he noticed over his shoulder that the girls were crying. He thought they had been spanked. When he came back in, he went over to them and looked up under their hands that covered their faces and patted their backs to console them. "Bouclé is gone, Gigi," wept Albert. Guillaume looked confused. "Bouclé ran away, and we can't find him," explained Renee, wiping her nose. He still looked confused, which was common for Guillaume. "Da!" said Guillaume, pointing outside. Nobody paid any attention to him. He moved toward the back door as if he were going outside. "No, don't go out now. It's time to eat," said Mother. "Bouki da!" said Guillaume loudly. "What?" asked Mother. The others now looked at him too. "Bouki da!" insisted Guillaume again, pointing outside with his chubby finger. Mary looked out the back window, in the direction where Guillaume was pointing, and there, well hidden under a low ivy plant along the back of the plot where Guillaume had been playing, she could just make out the shape of a small lamb. "He was with Guillaume," said Mary. "There's Bouclé at the back, under the ivy." The twins ran outside and gently pulled the sleeping lamb from the ivy. This didn't at all please the lamb, who was quite comfortable and warm where he was. The girls' tears turned into grateful smiles and hugs. Guillaume still didn't know what the fuss was all about. He just frowned and walked away. After the morning meal, Father, the twins, and Abraham headed off for the fabric shop. Along the way, the girls showed Father the dark doorway they had hid in and the place in the street where the dragoons stopped them. The twins loved the fabric shop with all its intricate weaving machines and had often been there with Mother as she tended to customers. The back of the shop was full of weaving machines, spinners, rollers, yarns, dyes, and many kinds of threads. The front of the store was reserved for showing fabrics and serving customers. On the front counter stood 2 fat jars of Greek olives, which Father sold for a very low price to help bring people into the store. Father and 3 apprentices, one of which was Abraham, worked in the back creating very fine fabrics. The king had forbidden Huguenots to work as doctors, lawyers, city officials, pharmacists, and many other positions, so instead they turned their skills to other trades such as fabric and paper production. Everyone in the shop, from Father to the newest apprentice, worked very hard, and everyone's muscles were always sore by the end of the day. That's how Father determined a good day's work. If you weren't tired, then it wasn't really work. But no one worked just for himself or simply for money. They understood, almost without thinking, that they labored and created beautiful materials for the glory of God. The twins stayed at the shop all afternoon doing small chores, playing with leftover fabric pieces, and eating olives. They pieced the leftover fabric into pretend outfits and animal skins. Many people visited the store that day, and almost everyone asked the girls about their new baby sister, Phoebe. The girls sparkled as they described the baby's blue eyes and thick black hair. "Will we see Phoebe at church this Lord's Day?" asked a friend, while Father wrapped her fabric. "Oh yes, she'll be there. We plan to have the elders baptize her this Sunday, Lord willing. We'll show her off then," said Father. He always carefully helped each customer and made sure that they were very pleased with their purchases. Everyone, Christians and non-Christians, respected Father as a man of strength and honesty. He, in turn, was kind and respectful to every customer, but he was not slavish or flattering. His face and eyes seemed to naturally show his honesty, wisdom, and self-discipline. Upon first meeting him, some people were a little afraid, but as soon as he showed one of his wide, weathered smiles, people felt right at home. Father left Abraham to close the shop that night, and he and the girls left a little early, but they didn't take the normal way home. The late afternoon sun had set, the stars were coming out, and a warm summer wind blew from the ocean. "Why aren't we going the usual way?" said Renee. "It's such a beautiful summer evening," said Father, "that I wanted to walk by the harbor beach." The girls each held one of Father's hands, and they walked for quite a while. Little legs started to get tired. Finally they came to a sandy beach on the south harbor side of La Rochelle. They sat down and rested, staring at the two towers, St. Nicholas and Chain Tower, standing stoutly at the mouth of the harbor. At night, the harbor keepers would raise a giant chain between the towers so as to protect the harbor at night. Several tall ships swayed gently in the harbor, and the breeze seemed even warmer now, though it was dark. An unbelievable amount of stars was emerging. "Girls, I brought you out here so you could really see these stars," said Father. "Have you ever seen such a sight? You are usually indoors at this time." Renee and Albert stared at them. "They are like little jewels," said Renee. "Many, many diamonds," said Albert. They all sat there for a moment quietly. "Can you feel the sand in your hands?" Father asked in a calm, serious voice. They nodded and slowly let some sand trickle through their fingers. "It's warm," said Renee. Another breeze filled them with the rich smell of the ocean. "Girls, it's very important that you remember these stars and this sand," Father said solemnly. The girls looked at him, waiting for an explanation. His eyes were moist. "Very slowly," he started. "The other night on St. Bartholomew's Day, we spoke of many sad things, and soon you may see more. We don't know what the future holds, but whatever happens, I will need you to be strong and faithful to the Lord. There may be many tears. We don't know what the King may do. But whatever happens, I want you to remember this sand and these stars." He sighed deeply. "Do you remember Abraham in the scriptures? The Lord promised Abraham that someday the friends of God would be as numerous as the stars in the sky and the sand on the beach. Someday there'll be so many friends that there will be very few, if any, wicked kings, hypocrites, and enemies. Someday the Lord will wipe away all of our tears because he will keep his promise to Abraham. So wherever we are, remember this place. Will you promise me that?" Father asked, staring at the stars. "Yes," the twins said thoughtfully. They sat in silence, thinking for a while. They watched the shooting star over the horizon. There's something else about the sand and stars. The Lord also promised that he would show his mercy and blessings to Abraham's children, all those who trust God the way Abraham did, along with their children. The Lord told us to place his mark on all Abraham's children so we can separate the friends from the enemies and remember that it is the Lord who cleans our hearts, saves us, and not we ourselves. That's why we baptized you when you were born. God places his mark on his people, keeping his holy promises to Abraham of so long ago." "And Phoebe?" asked Albert. "That's right. On this Lord's Day we will take Phoebe to church and see to it that she too will be baptized and counted as a child of Abraham, like one star or one grain of sand," he said with a smile. "And the Lord promised that he will be merciful to the children of Abraham for 1,000 generations. Many, many, many births. So I pray that he would do that in our family for 1,000 generations. And will you pray for your children and their children and teach them to be faithful to the Lord?" "Yes," they said. "And I'll tell them to tell their children to pray," added Albert. The three of them sat quietly for a moment. A light breeze warmed their faces. With hope and sadness in his voice, Father said, "So always remember those stars and this sand." He hugged both girls at the same time with a big bear hug. "Now let's go home and see that new girl of ours again."